Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends. And dear Jan, thank you for sharing your story. It is a great honor for me to be here today, both as a member of the European Parliament, on the committees of Foreign Affairs and Human Rights, but especially as a co-chair of the European Parliament's Intergroup on Children's Rights. Indeed, it is a great honor to be here as a voice for children in need of being heard. Advocating for children's rights has been my guiding light in my societal and political engagement, starting from when I was a Paralympic athlete to when I became a board member of UNICEF Sweden. I have always believed and worked for all children to have the right to be just that, children, and to be given the opportunity to grow and develop into the best that they can be. I was therefore thrilled and honored to be entrusted with co-chairing the Intergroup on Children's Rights. And I'd like to start by explaining what that is. It is a cross-party, cross-national collaboration of committed members of the European Parliament who work closely with UN agencies and civil society to put children's rights at the top of the EU agenda. The Intergroup is the only formal body in the European Parliament with an explicit focus on children's rights. The Intergroup aims to mainstream children's rights in all EU policies and legislation, both internally and externally. For this, the Intergroup uses the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child as a starting point to ensure that the best interest of the child is always fully respected in EU policy. And currently, the Intergroup gathers over 100 parliamentarians from all major political groups represented in the European Parliament. And this is one of the main strengths, since when passing this legislation, cross-party political support is crucial. Indeed, since its establishment, the group has been instrumental in passing groundbreaking pieces of legislation for advancing children's rights across Europe as well as globally. Ending all forms of violence towards children has always been the top priority of the Intergroup, and given the scourge of online child sexual exploitation, we will focus on fighting these types of crimes in the current parliamentary term as well. So I will now briefly touch on current EU legislation in this field. We have Directive 93/2011 on combating child sexual abuse, child sexual exploitation, and child pornography. That is the single most important EU legislation in tackling sexual crimes against children. Passed in 2011, the directive was an important milestone in establishing a European-level legal framework for the criminalization of child pornography. It certainly contributed to remedy the shortcomings of the European Council's framework decision previously in place. And the European Parliament took an important stance on the directive during the previous parliamentary term and passed an own initiative report on the implementation of the directive. And while legislation is not the answer alone, this directive offers an important step in the right direction. And further, many things have happened since 2011. With an increasing online presence, new forms of crimes against children are arising. For example, sex extortion, specifically targeting girls and young migrants. Here, we need stronger laws. Dear colleagues, child sexual abuse and exploitation are serious violations of the fundamental rights of children. These horrible crimes result in enormous trauma, as we know, and long-lasting consequences for the victims that do follow them well into adulthood. And the Internet provides a new forum for committing these types of crimes. Our latest figures show an appalling picture. To this day, more than 45 million images and videos have been flagged as child sexual abuse. At the same time, the number of images depicting child sexual abuse material online is increasing at an unprecedented pace. At the same time, the Internet not only allows for rapid and widespread sharing of these type of images, but also for new forms of abuse. For example, we had a few high-profile court cases in Sweden, even my home country. Perpetrators sitting behind their screens at home in Sweden while their victims have been violated in the Philippines, as we heard. Studies show that these types of crimes are hard to tackle and that the perpetrators receive more lenient penalties compared to if the crime had been committed in Sweden. And this is totally unacceptable. These terrible crimes do not know borders and thus require strong, unified, global and EU response. It is therefore of utmost importance that the EU puts in place an action plan that actually eradicates sexual violence and child abuse, both online and offline. For this to be successful, we need to collaborate closely with the civil society. But we cannot rely solely on civil society. Close collaboration, as we know, with the companies is also necessary. For this approach to be successful, parents must have a key role. Particularly among the older generations, media literacy can sometimes be very scarce. This means that they may underestimate threats online and not fully understand the danger that the internet poses. Here, civil society plays an important role as an information provider. Informing parents about the threats associated with the internet should lead to a better online risk awareness and therefore a safer online environment for children. Within the EU member states, enhanced cooperation between law enforcement authorities, the private sector, and civil society organizations, including hotline networks, could help prevent child suffering. And given the high scourge of sexual abuse that is plaguing many children around the world, I want to conclude on a positive note. I would like to emphasize that the Intergroup will push the European Commission to protect and prevent exploitation of children wherever it occurs. And I will continuously, together with the Intergroup, work together towards an effective and coordinated response against child sexual abuse and all other forms against children. So thank you for having me here, and thank you to the We Protect Global Alliance for hosting this. It's an extremely important event, and I cannot wait to see what we can do after these conferences as well. Thank you.